Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all doing well today, November 3rd, 2020. I'm very excited to welcome Dr. Latasha Wright, our speaker and workshop lead today, and I'll introduce her in just a little bit. But just a reminder, as we're getting close to demo day, November 14th, okay? I sent you guys a reminder with some of the things where, what that presentation should be about, 10 minutes or so, and really just showcasing the work that you're doing. If you have questions about that, let me know. It's supposed to be a celebration. It's kind of for us helping you launch your initiatives out there, giving you a little bit of a boost along the way, and we record it, get it out there. So it's a celebration, okay? We're not competing or anything like that. But I just can't believe it's almost 2 weeks before we get done. And I'll be very sad when this window, this Tuesday afternoons are a little gap in my calendar. But it's been super exciting. And we have our last session next week with our panelists that will be joining us. And one of them is our former alumni from the program. So very excited to see what she's been up to. So a quick introduction, Dr. Wright is the co-founder and chief scientific officer of BIOBUS. She received a Ph.D. from NYU, and she continued training at Johns Hopkins and on to Cornell. I don't want to tell her whole life story. I feel like she will tell us that in Ling of BIOBUS. One thing that I just reading up her bio a little bit, I think she's spearheaded a lot of programming within BIOBUS, and I think that's really fascinating that even within that framework of BIOBUS, you're building these initiatives, and you were talking about a summer program earlier. And I think that's very fascinating to hear more about, and your passion for science, because you've been able to sort of manage both hurdles, like traversing your journey. So Dr. Wright, it's an honor to have you with us, and we're super excited to learn more about what you're up to and what you are going to do next. Welcome.
Hey everyone. I am excited to speak with you guys today, especially like November 3rd. So I'm going to kind of present my work in with the leadership kind of overarching part, which is this is actually my first time doing that. So you guys are gonna give me good feedback and let me know if this is right. But basically, I wanted to make this more of a like a discussion because I don't want to just talk at you guys. But of course, if you don't want to participate, you don't have to. But I've got the chat open, and so if and stop me at any time if you want me to clarify something or something, you know. So let's get this going. Um, so, do you guys? All right, all right. You guys see my screen? Oh! I don't see the chat. Let me see if I can. Okay, just make if there's something in the chat. Will you let me know?
Yes, I'll let you know. Don't worry.
Okay, great. All right, so this is our logo, our BIOBUS logo. If we have time, I'll tell you all the story about behind getting this logo together because that's also a story. Um, so BIOBUS is a grassroots approach to building a scientific community. Of course, my name is Latasha Wright. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer at BIOBUS Inc. And this is my email. Feel free to email me anytime and ask me any questions. And if you don't get it right now, it's my name at BIOBUS. Everybody, we're not so sophisticated at BIOBUS. It's just everybody's first name at BIOBUS. Um, so we can't hire another Latasha because there's no, she can't have an email. That was a joke. All right. So our initial hypothesis was like giving people hands-on experience in an authentic research environment will empower them to embrace and practice science. So that was our first hypothesis. And we started again, I just want to let you know, we started in 2008. So we've been around for 12 years now. And that was our first thing. We were like, okay, what is this going to be about? And so from there, the hypothesis has now evolved to our vision. So our vision is so that all people achieve their full scientific potential, and we're focused on communities historically excluded from science based on race, gender, and their socioeconomic background. So the story is that Ben, who's the other co-founder, found this 1974 transit bus on Craigslist in Oregon. So he went, bought it, drove it across country, and got it painted in this very vivid way. And we basically pulled our friends in. And we were like, hey, you got an extra microscope? And a lot of our friends gave us extra microscopes from their labs. We also, Olympus also donated a couple of microscopes, and Modic, you can see all of the sponsors are microscope people in Zeiss. And so what we did was we put all of these microscopes on this 1974 transit bus, and we took it to schools and communities all over New York City. And we started partnering with like the World Science Fair, and this is Brainy. They're a neuroscience outreach group in New York City. And it was great. The reception was wonderful, even though it wasn't super fancy because, you know, it was 1974 transit bus. And we didn't have a lot of money to make it like super fancy inside, but we had the high-tech microscopes, the microscopes that you would use in the research laboratories. So kids are like, yo, this is awesome. And we were like, yeah, I know. And it was like so awesome because then we also had a lot of volunteers. We had a lot of volunteers who came aboard and helped us to teach kids, and it was great. And that's like how I actually started working at BIOBUS, because I was really into yoga, and my friend, she was a yoga teacher, and she was like, "Oh, you're a science person?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "I know this guy who's doing this cool science thing," and so she introduced me to Ben, and I went to his first fundraiser, and they were selling pulled pork. They had a band, and I was like, bro, I'm down. And so we went. Then he was like, okay, let's start like come to volunteer with me. And I was like, all right. And like we went to this school, and I was like, it just took me to the other level because, you know, like I was in my postdoc, and like our science is trash, you know, in that trash phase. And then I'd like have kids be like, oh, this is so amazing. And I was like, yo, science is amazing. This is why I went into science, to see this amazing. And like it reminded me of like why I went to science, because it's just that little bit of curiosity and that spark of discovery. And it was just like every day I'm getting that, being able to have that spark of discovery. I was addicted. So then I decided to work with him, and my mom was like, you got your PhD at NYU, you went to Johns Hopkins, and you're at Cornell, and you want to work on the bus." And I was like, a 1974 transit bus that's been upcycled. And let's just say it was it didn't go over well. It didn't go over well with my family, but they said, okay, she's crazy. We know she's been crazy. She's whatever. Let's just go with it. We're gonna ride with it. So sometimes you just gotta ride with it, you know. And by the way, I took a pay cut to work on this bus. And so not only am I not doing academia, but I'm getting poor. So my dad was like, yo, when are you getting out of my pockets? And I was like, not yet. I'll let you know. And I'm gonna let him know soon. So from there, these are the first people who worked. So the first one is Ben Dubin-Thaler. Then it was Sarah Weisberg, and me. We were the full-time employees. We taught, and we also like did all of the business development, the things that obviously you guys are now trying to understand and go for, because they don't really, you know, teach that in grad school. And Matt, of course, is Sarah's brother. And he's a great teacher. And Danny, he used to be a public school teacher, but he was doing the logistics for us, helping to book the programs. So in the beginning, the leadership team was me, Ben, and Sarah, and we were doing what was good about it is that we kind of have different strengths, and we all had a super big passion for the science outreach. And so we all could, and we all really respected and trusted each other. And kind of like, if you're like, okay, you got this, you got this, you got this, okay, you know what I mean? So Ben is like really good at the admin, HR, the stuff that I think I kind of want to put my eyes out if I have to do. But he's like really good at that kind of thing. And Sarah's like, let's do it all. And like, she's like super energy, and she's like going, let's do it. I know we don't really need to sleep, guys. Let's do this. And like, I'm more in the middle. So it was like holding those opposing forces together, but it ended up being great. So you just need to like have a whole mixture of people who are doing different things, and then being able to see like where this thing could go. Because, when I started, I was like, I was thinking that we're just going to have buses. And what was great about it was when we went to the bus and we went to all of these great communities, we found that there was like, the results were that it was a high throughput way of engaging the community in science outreach. It was an effective way to spark the scientific curiosity in students. And it was an effective way to bring science to underserved communities, because you just drive there and everything was on the bus. So there's no need for them to go um, come to you. We went to them. So we went into the communities. And so there's an effective way to bridge the gap between academia and non-scientists, because we had tons of scientist volunteers as well. And so then I want to just kind of show in the corner over here just how many students we had on the BIOBUS from FY 2008 and FY12. You can see these are the student lab hours. So each student is on the bus about 45 minutes. So by FY28, we had about 25,000 students being able to come aboard the bus per year with us, the five of us. So we were getting it done. So then in FY13, yes, the Lower East Side Girls Club, which has been our long-term collaborator, they built this amazing facility in the Lower East Side of New York on Avenue D and 10th Street, which is kind of out of the way of where, for public transportation, but is like, the building was amazing. There was so much, it was a great opportunity. Until this time, we were squatting in my friend's lab, and that was our office space for 4 years. So they offered us like a space, a permanent home. We were like, yo, got it, own it. And so we took it. And so we started this place. And we thought like the bus was really great for just getting people excited and wanting to go to, about science, but we really couldn't do anything because after that. So you take the bus and then the kids can come aboard and get excited. But now what's the next step? So with this BioBase, we were able to have that next step. So we had after school programs and summer camps and weekend programs. And the weekend programs were really great because the kids came with their parents. And so then I was like, the parents, you guys can do experiments too. And like, it was great because the parents, like we gave notebooks to the kids and the parents would bring their own notebooks and they were writing in it. And it was just like a family affair of like them doing science with their kids. And so it was a really community building effort and it felt really great. And so of course, then I was like, let's do summer camp. And I had never actually been to summer camp because did I mention I'm from Mississippi? And my summer camp was like my mom opening the door and put me outside for like 8 hours. But that was my summer camp. But here it's like, oh, let's do summer camp. So I had to learn how, like what summer camp meant and then how to publicize it and all of that. And so of course, like I overreached because that's the way I roll. And so it was like the first time, it was like 5 weeks of summer camp. And by the 5th week, I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I like children. and, And then I tried to make it like, I tried to make it avant-garde because I'm weird. And so the last week was science and dance. So half of the day they did science, and the second half they would interpret what they saw on the microscope through dance. And then the kids were like, I just want to dance. I was like, you gotta do the science too. And so everything ended up awesome. But, like the thing is like, make sure you're working in your range, so that's where I am. I just want to just put that out there because I know you guys are just starting out, and like the first time you're like super excited and want to do everything and want to do everything, but make sure you can do everything in the way that makes sense. So here, so what we found was that this was an effective way to have sustained interactions with students through after school programs, the summer camps and the weekend programs. And it was an effective way to bridge the academic community through hosting public events like Science Happy Hour. Our Science Happy Hour was we would invite an academic researcher in to come to the space, and everybody, families, we could have wine and cheese and talk to, they would give like a 20-minute TED talk and then interact with the public. And we had like, Marty Chaffee, who's like a big microbiome person. We had Dan Littman, who's like a huge, immunologist. So we had like a lot of people who I actually worked with when I was at NYU, and I asked them to come here, and they were like, okay. So it's really cool that we had these kind of scientists who would normally not interact in this community. So we were able to do those things. And so it was a great way to like really start building this inclusive scientific community. All right. And then in 2014, Columbia Zuckerman Institute, they came and they approached us, and they were like, we're building a state-of-the-art facility right on the 1 train in Harlem. It's gonna be 50 laboratories, 800 scientists, multi-million kind of thing. Would you guys like to partner with us? And we were like, yo, yes. The answer to that is yes. But we thought it was a great opportunity. But of course, so I just want to kind of run through a couple things you might need to think about when you want to partner with people. And also at this time, we got a huge grant from the Simons Foundation to do this Harlem expansion. And so this is what I'm showing you now, is our new BIOBUS, or BIOBUS 2, which is on an Airstream. And then we have the fancy little microscope carts that can go anywhere. They can live inside of the Airstream, or they can go outside, and then we can have pop-up laboratories everywhere. So I just want to give you some things to chew on of what you need to think about before you decide if you want to partner with people. First, is it mission aligned? Is it what you want to do? Like, think about your own mission. And is this expansion mission aligned? Because we have had like a ton of opportunities to work with other people, but it's not been really what in our mission. So like really think about if this is what you want, because it's very easy to have mission drift, and especially if you're chasing opportunities. So like sometimes you need to be aggressive in the opportunities, but also all the time you need to think about how is this serving my mission? How is it serving what I started doing this for? For us, it was serving underserved communities and adding accessibility to science. And we thought that this was right. And this is something that I learned after partnering with multiple people, is not only do you need to be mission aligned, but you have to agree with how you implement this mission. For instance, you could be thinking, oh, I'm gonna serve underserved communities, and everybody's on board with that. But someone says, okay, I only wanna do girls. And I'm like, no, but I wanna do boys and girls. That doesn't work if you're occupying the same space. And most of the people who are like, okay, I just want to do girls, then you can say, can I do boys and girls? And they say no, or they can say yes, but sometimes they may change their mind. So like you really need to think about like how the mission actually works together. And also, is this financially feasible for your organization? Because if you expand, you're going to have to increase all of the initial overhead for that. And that includes like staffing and outreach. And there's like a big financial commitment in the front end of expanding. And make sure that your missions are compatible, you know, like everybody, both of you can work on after school programs, but maybe somebody is working in elementary and they're in high school, or like like you can do the same things, but they have to like be either feeding into each other, or you're able to co-fundraise and be able to like make sure that it's acting synergistically. You don't want to be competing with your partner. And also there's advocates and senior leadership, especially for us because we're a small nonprofit and going to Columbia University, we needed like an advocate in the senior leadership who could say, okay, this is something that we believe in, and you know, and like, because it's going to take you a little bit of time to get off your feet. So I need to like have those advocates and have those people, and not just one, multiple advocates, because we had like one big guy, because we were like, oh, we got the leader of the institute, and then the guy took another job somewhere else. So we had to then build up to be, you know, get other people who are our advocates. So it's making sure that you're like embedded into the community that you're being a partner with. And of course, and the most important thing is a partnership agreement, which is clearly states like how long, the timeline, like even who's in charge of, you know, paying the phone bill, who's in charge of the cleaning service. Those things are like super important to have mapped out in the beginning, so that there's, you know, there's a, like everybody understands where the finance is gonna go. So this is the BIOBUS parked in front of the Jerome L. Green Science Center. And we thought that this was a great opportunity for us because this allows us to bridge academia with the non-scientists, and we would get access to all of this amazing cutting edge science that's going on in the building. We would get access to the students and also the professors, and we could bring all of those people together in a way that we couldn't in the Lower East Side, because the Lower East Side was mostly a community center, so that we didn't have access to the same kind of academia, which we all were kind of grew up in. And so we were able to really use our skills that we have honed in academia to kind of say, okay, let's bridge this gap. And so this was a great match for us. So Columbia, once we said yes, then Columbia commissions a community needs assessment, which is, I can go into details of why this is super important later if you really want to know. But it's the first is to determine if the community is even interested or likely to participate in programs offered by your organization. And the thing is to build partnerships with key opinion leaders in the neighborhood and determine how best to activate the untapped potential in the neighborhood. And this creates avenues for honest and open communication between your organization and the community. And it allows co-creation of programs that benefit the community in a meaningful and impactful way. So co-creation is super important because you want to make sure that, because we all think we have great ideas, but it's great to be able to, if you're going to be a community organization, you need to like work within the community and see what are the things that they can bring, and what can you bring, and how can you expand on and make everything much better. So it's really augmenting your impact. So the key findings was that classroom visits were important to all participants. There was high interest in the community events featuring neuroscience. There was a need for hands-on practical activities, and students need to develop critical thinking skills. And there's a need for experiential learning, recognizing Harlem's unique cultural contexts. There's a need for internships for high performers as well as average performers. And trust was a large issue for this community, and substantial effort must be placed in building these relationships. So I'm gonna just talk about building relationships. Um, there's no substitute. You have to put your boots on the ground. It takes a long time. It's ongoing. It's not something you can do in the first 30 days and you're done. It's the whole time that you're in that community. You're building and sustaining these relationships. So the first thing you should do is seek out established, trusted nonprofits who are serving the population that you want to serve and build a partnership with them. And it's a service. That is you're offering service at this point because they're offering, hey, I'm lending my good name and I'm actually mentoring you through this process. So you have to be open to whatever they need and say, because they have been there and they know the landscape. And then you can also consult your local faith-based organization about the community needs, form connections with superintendents and schools, local teachers or parent coordinators. And most important is to be visible in the community. And that means eating in the bodega. That means hanging out in the park. That means like shopping at the 99-cent store. That means being there. So when people see you, they can go, oh, that's the scientist that works over there, you know? And so that is super important. It's not just to go to work and then go home. It's like spending time in the place that you're serving. So from the community needs assessment, we designed our programs. So these are 3 different ways that we distinguish our programs: discover, explore, and pursue. Discover is meant to spark curiosity. Explore is more in-depth programming, and pursue is our high school internship. So with the discover part, we take the bus to different schools and communities all over Harlem, Washington Heights, the South Bronx, and Upper Manhattan. And then explore, we have after school programs, again, weekend programs and summer camps for elementary and middle school. And the pursue programs, we have 2 levels. So we have one for the kids who are like super excited, but lack the skills to really jump into the lab themselves right away. And then we have some for the kids who are super excited, but can just go ahead and jump in the lab and start doing experiments. So those are the things that we developed because of the community needs assessment. So all of this is couched in our logic model. I heard that you guys are just doing these logic models. And so I wanted to kind of show mine off with the color coordination. Um, and so like our goals here, I have 3 big goals. So one is building an inclusive scientific community. And I see you clapping. The other one is to influence the student science identity. And the other is creating an empowered community, and that includes our BIOBUS staff as well as the participants. So everybody's in this community that are working together. So those are our long-term goals. And so we have outcomes, short-term outcomes and long-term outcomes, and tons of activities that lead to that. And they're mapped, they're mapped with the colors. So I'm just gonna go through, the building an inclusive scientific community. So the long-term goals are functioning network of stakeholders that we co-fundraise with and co-deliver programs for communities. That is about building the community needs assessment, looking at the key opinion leaders, making sure you're there and building those relationships. So making sure that relationship's there. And also our interns are majoring in science, that our interns are entering the STEM workforce through research or other outreach organizations, and that we improve the access to scientific practice to those who have been historically excluded. So our short term is the majority of our students are from marginalized groups in science, and that we're building a growing network of like-minded people, including some of you guys, hopefully. And so some of the activities are providing access to students to science activities, outreach to communities that are underserved through public events, partnership development, I already talked how much that is, and also revise and disseminate our evaluation plan so that other people are seeing how we're evaluating our programs, and discover, explore, and pursue programs, and develop best practices for delivering these programs. So I'm just going to go through one because I don't want to go through all of these things. But so you can see how the logic model, how those programs kind of fit in the logic model together. So talking about leadership, I just wanted to kind of go back and show you this very complicated slide. So we have two focus zones now, the Lower East Side and Harlem, which Harlem includes Washington Heights, Inwood, and South Bronx. But we just call it Harlem. So here, Ben is the executive director. That's me. So I'm the chief scientist. I was a chief scientist I started the Lower East Side, and then I handed that off to Sarah and then started Harlem. So I'm the one that starts all the programs. So I'm at Harlem, and it says Sarah is over the Lower East Side. So I had 4 direct reports for scientists who worked under me, and then they had some interns as well. And then Sarah had like 4. She also had some of the facilities teams who were responding to her. And then Ben had people who were the program operations team, and the evaluation and development were under the executive director. So we kind of worked horizontally. So Ben is more of the business development part, like the program operations, and also also fundraising and things like that. It's more Ben. But Sarah and I were really working on like the Harlem expansion and the Lower East Side. So we did all of the programming in those areas. So that's how we kind of worked. And there was a lot of autonomy, but of course we're all mission focused and mission driven. So the Lower East Side. So I have the one that I showed you, that logic model is for all of BIOBUS, or all of the science of BIOBUS. And so their logic models would feed into my logic model, but we all have the goal. So their activities would go into my goal. So I showed you the model from that. We have the Harlem, and then we have the Lower East Side, and we have the DEP programs. And so this is work. And so we have Aaron, who came on the BIOBUS. Then he went to our after school programs, and then he became an intern. So yes, we have kids who are going. It's cute to see him like grow. Who's gone through all of the pathways. And this is one of his quotes. And it says, BIOBUS gives me the opportunity to learn about something relevant to my life, like biodiversity of the river, and BIOBUS allows us to partake in projects that will impact something bigger and more important So really what's key that statement is that he's doing things that he feels is relevant, and that he feels like it's like he's a part of the bigger scientific community. Okay. So I just wanted to show you a cute picture of our cohorts in 2019. These are our interns, and this is a science career panel. And we're just starting to really track where all of our interns are. Right now, the ones who have responded to our survey, 100% are either majoring or minoring in science, or have like a STEM job. So we feel really great. Not that we're trying to, make our little, make little copies of ourselves, but we are trying to make sure that kids are being critical thinkers and being able to being scientifically literate, but we're excited that so many of them are staying in STEM. So why does this work? So this is our program approach, and why does this work? So first of all, the environment is super important. So it's a safe space that allows students to explore science and self-development, and where students develop self-awareness, self-directions, and self-confidence, and student voice is central to all of our programs. And the mentorship is super important. And students work side by side with relatable, like myself, scientists. So this is a quote from Ramia. Coming to the biobase every weekend is what immediately uplifted my spirits and made me feel like I had a community to belong to, where I could be viewed as a scientist and felt validated as someone who knew what they were doing, not be discredited because I was young or female. So hardcore data. I gave you a lot of anecdotal stuff. So I'm going to give you this data. We have an internal evaluator who was looking at 11 students over 14 months. And what's great is that their science inquiry skills was increased, but what we really look at and we're really proud of is that their science identity was really increased as well. And if you go back and remember the logic model, that was one of the goals as well. Because we find that science identity is really important for persistence in STEM. If you believe yourself to be a scientist, then you will stay in STEM, and it's a better indicator than even your grades or all the scores. It's like, do I believe in myself? So that's why we were super excited about that. And the other thing, if you remember, building an inclusive scientific community. So this is BioBase Harlem. These blue things are where the BioBus is going. And these orange men are the addresses of the kids who go to our after school programs or summer camps, our Explore programs. And the yellow people are our high school interns. So what we really love is that there's a cluster of people who live by the biobase who are coming to our programs. So this is we're not just doing this and then kids who are, in these elitist schools can then come do this. It's the people who are in the neighborhood taking advantage of this as a resource, which is one of our big things, is that we want to make sure that the people in the neighborhood are benefiting from us being there. And this makes us really happy. And so this is also the Lower East Side. And so BioBus has worked with over 90% of the schools in the Lower East Side, and 20,000 kids have come aboard in the Lower East Side. So we have a great community in Harlem as well as the Lower East Side. So here I'll just show you the student lab hours you saw just a little cutout in the beginning from FY 08. Now this is all the way to FY 19. So this is just from Discover programs. So we've had a lot of kids. So over the 10 years, we've had 300,000 kids come aboard the BioBus and do participate in our programs. So yeah, so it's pretty exciting. So up until FY19, we were doing really great. And then Sarah, she was like, yeah, I'm done with this. So she left and she went back to school to get her degree in climate science. So that made us, now we had to rethink our leadership team, because at that time it was 3 of us, and then now it's only 2 of us. So we wanted to expand our focus, our leadership team. And so so it's Ben is the executive director and me. So now I've got promoted to the chief scientific officer, and I was in charge of both of the people so Francesca took over the chief scientist position in Harlem, and Christine, she's on maternity leave now, so Christine is taking that space. And Molly took over from Sarah as the chief scientist of the Lower East Side. And so I'm over all of the science teams, and then Ben is more over the operations here, again, with the development and the facilities and evaluations and IT. And Sarah is still kind of consulting a little bit, but she's mostly, in graduate school. And so so we decided to form a leadership council to help us to, so the executives are me and Ben, but the leadership council included the people who were like the chief scientist, as well as the director of facilities and the director of development. So this is what we decided to kind of make sure that things are more super horizontal, because we were thinking it's getting a little too hierarchical. And so we wanted to make sure that decisions were made, that we were able to make decisions based off of what people on the ground really needed. So that's why we decided that this leadership council helped us to stay in touch with people who were teaching every day, who were doing the work, who were like, we want to make sure that we are still getting the correct feedback from the community and growing in a way that makes it our program super impactful. So the core responsibilities is that they advise us on the budget, strategic planning, vision and mission, making sure that there's no mission drift, and communication strategy. And as you get bigger, communications is hard, even internal as well as external. And also the staffing, how like we got a staffing plan of who hiring, firing, and planning. So we also have a staff retreats, and so that's what the staff, and making sure that we're doing the right trainings for everybody. So I told you who they're made up, and we meet twice a month. And if things are like crazy, like during COVID time, we met more frequently, like every week. So then COVID happened. So it took us a minute, because we were like, for so long we had a bus and we were identifying as the BIOBUS. And then we had this base, and then we were identifying as a BIOBUS and a BIOBASE. And now we don't have anything. So what are we, So we had to think about, what are we without those things? And so these are the 4 core things that BIOBUS is. Like, we believe in, like, there's a sustained high quality engagement of students, and then building an inclusive scientific community, and that student voice is our guiding light of all of our curriculum development. And whether we are in person or remote, we wanted to have the same high impact and personal interaction with scientists, that you could follow up with hands-on engaging activities that students could do alone or in classrooms. So the first thing we did was just do a needs assessment. So we sent out like a survey to all of our collaborators, a lot of those key opinion leaders that I talked about before, and asked them, what can we do? How do we need to respond to this? And so this is what the results were. They wanted videos and other materials available for anytime use, weekly science classes led by Bible scientists, public live stream events, or one-time interactive sessions, or scientist Q&A sessions. So what did we do? We formed task forces. So these were staff-led, because we wanted the staff to lead the programmatic response to COVID, and they were chaired by the team captains, because team captains had an idea, the bird's eye view of what we wanted to do. So we made a Discover task force, an Explore task force, Pursue task force, and a Communications task force, and a Volunteer and Teacher PD task force. So originally they were chaired by the team captains, but now we have transferred that responsibility to other people in the organization who want to flex their leadership skills. And so from there, we were able to really come up with these 3 program types: Discover at Home. So all of the scientists, including myself, got microscopes. So at home, so our facilities team basically took apart all of our labs and and put a microscope in, all of the things that you need in the scientist's house. And so we zoom into classrooms and do a Discover at Home, which is a live interactive session. And then we have an Explore at Home, which is weekly science challenges that are launched on Tuesdays. And it's with materials that you can find at your house. So one is like, this one is grow edible plants on your windowsill. We had one which about bird watching, one about pressing plants. One was setting up ant picnics and seeing what kind of ants come. So we had a lot of things like that. And then the student town halls, which is ongoing, which I invite you guys to come to this week. The student town halls were based off of first in the beginning, the COVID response. A lot of the parents and kids were asking BIOBUS, what's happening? What should I be listening to? Cut through the noise for us. So what we did was the first two were on COVID, to figure out, like, and had people submit their questions, and then we answer, what is COVID? Why do you need a mask? What is it doing? And so we've done things from COVID down to like birds, dragonflies, and then we then of course, like, shut down STEM happened. And that's when a lot of people in science outreach shut down, and we thought about how can we address racism in our school, in our company, and at the shutdown STEM, our interns are like, let's do a series on racism, a town hall series on racism. And so this is what we're doing. So we're going to have one on Thursday. It's our third in the series, is racism and public health. The first one was, how does racism impact all of us? The second one was racism in science. And this one on Thursday is racism and public health. And the last one will be racism and disease. And it's been really great. And I was super nervous because this is out of my comfort zone, because I'm not a social scientist. I'm a scientist. I'm like a, hardcore wet scientist. And so we brought in all of these social scientists who are able to talk on these issues. And it's really been like, and what's great about it is that it's helped us to like even think about that things that how we use language, how like we've changed like a lot of things that we do. Like one thing, like even in my presentation when I said untapped potential, that was from the way, like some of the town halls. So it's been a growing experience for all of us, and it's been great to see that. So I invite you guys to attend on Thursday. So this is the video, and I gotta watch it because make sure you drink the Kool-Aid. Wait, no, why didn't it start? Okay, here we go.
Science is the pursuit of truth. The search for truth is something that every human being, I think, has deep inside of them. We at BIOBUS think that all we have to do is give students the opportunity to pursue that desire that they already have inside of them.
BIOBUS is a community of scientists and science enthusiasts, and we come together, and people who really love what they're doing are just wanting to share that information. There's many ways to study science, and the one way that we really like to focus on studying science is using microscopes. That really opens up the floodgates of like what is possible.
We focus on hands-on activities. It's much easier to learn what you're doing when you're actually doing it, as opposed to being told it.
When I was in my lab at Columbia, I was doing research on a big confocal microscope using lasers to watch cells as they crawl around. I would invite people, kids, parents, into the lab to see what I was doing. The reaction was pretty much universal, which is, this is amazing, and how can we do more of this? BIOBUS came from that experience of giving people the excitement of being in a research science lab.
Having the opportunity to go into a full lab, actually see the microscopes, be able to work with them, picking up samples and exploring nature, connecting it with real life, it's a whole new experience for them.
Most of the students that we work with are excited about science and interested in science, but don't have the opportunity to really practice science. At BIOBUS, we give students the opportunity to experiment, to ask questions, to work with scientists who can help them answer some of those questions using the microscopes and the other lab equipment that we have.
Students react with amazement and excitement, and it even ignites the scientists themselves because they're like, oh yeah, look at this, oh my God, yeah, that is cool.
We're really in a golden age of science in a lot of ways, in that more people than ever have the chance to go to grad school, study science, do research. Those same people are realizing that it needs to be even broader, that access to science needs to go even beyond what it is today. The scientific community is incredibly supportive of us, and I think that's part of the understanding broadly in the scientific community that we have to do more, that we have a big role to play in broadening access to scientific education and tools.
All right. So thank you guys. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Oh, such an in-depth dive into BIOBUS. Thank you.
That's what you asked for.
There's so many components to take apart for sure, but do you have any questions, any burning questions that any of you have? I have way too many, I always do, so I'll keep them to myself for now. And don't be shy, go ahead.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So you have so many programs going on. Do you have one particular one that you think that has been kind of the most successful, and why?
So we do have a lot of programs going on, but each one is different and they feed into each other. So that's why we want the Discover, Explore, Pursue pathway, so the kids can come in different ways. So different can come in and out, and so they have different. So it's kind of different levels of engagement. So Discover is more like sparking curiosity, and so that's like. So you can see like one-time use, and then Explore is like more of long-term. Okay, so that's after school, but then Pursue is they're there for like a year. So it's of course the Pursue program is the most impactful, I think, in my only in my because it is kind of the program that I really started, and it's close to my heart, and it's you can literally say that you're changing kids' lives for the better. And a lot of the kids, you can see, like, especially like we have the level of interns, like the one that I showed you, her name is Vanessa, and she started as a 10th grader, and she was my intern. When we first started, she was like, I literally could not get this girl to say a word. And it was really hard to and her partner was this guy who was talking all the time, and she would just sit there, and I'm like, say something. And then finally, on their last presentation, he forgot, somehow he got the days mixed up, so she had to do the presentation herself. And it was so funny because at the end I was like, how was it, Vanessa? She was like, it wasn't as horrible as I thought. And I was like, okay, that's okay. And so then she went to the other internships for the last 2 years, and now you can't get that girl to stop talking. She's just talking about science. She's like, now she's at George Washington, and she was like, Latasha, when I graduate from college, I'm gonna work at BIOBUS, right? And I was like, yeah, I got it. So so it's just seeing that evolution. And then I got to know her family, and I went to her graduation party at her house, and her mom was like, you did so, my daughter loves you. And I was like, oh, so it's just so for me that's super impactful, because you can see, of course there's a smaller number, but because you're spending a lot of your effort and your time and for that. And she sends me a Mother's Day present too, so I feel good about life when and I'm like, oh look, and then I kind of show everybody. So yeah, but I think that it's also, all of them are important and they all build on each other. But as far as the impact, the overall impact, of course, the longer you're with people, I think that's the bigger impact. I don't know if that answered. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, good question, Rosario. Any other ones?
You mentioned that when you first moved from the actual BIOBUS to the first like actual location, you started including parents during your after hours and your Saturday lessons. What were some of the challenges you had, or were there any challenges when you involved the parents?
Yeah.
And
sorry, go ahead.
oh no. And I was gonna say, like, what were some of the like upsides to involving them?
Upside is that the buy-in, right? It's because the parents are like, oh, I ain't seeing my kid like enjoy science, and some of them are like, I didn't enjoy science, but now I enjoy it because I'm seeing them enjoy it. And if I would have done this, I hear all the time from parents, if I would have had BIOBUS when I was a kid, I may have been a scientist too. So that's also the upside, is being able to like let adults know that just because you not studying right now doesn't mean that you can't learn more about science. Like you can still, you're a lifetime learner. And like reigniting the passion in adults was also really nice. The only part sometimes is that the parents are super aggressive and they're like, I want to do it. And you're like, let the kid do it first, and then I promise I'll let you do it. But like, so it's like managing that, like that kind of like I'm excited too kind of energy. That was part of it. And then, so we, that was really a big thing. It was like, okay. And so I started like having a parent station so that parents could go there and like fight each other instead of fighting the kids to work. But it's so those are some of the best parts of it. And like and then the best thing is that you build these relationships with the parents. And what I loved most about it is it's that we had such a variety of kids who came. Like we had kids who came from affluent neighborhoods and people who were like in shelters. And then what was funny is like these kids don't have this like barrier, so they like each other. And then they were like, let's set up a play date. And then to watch the parents who are from these different social economic environments try to like talk to each other was hilarious. And I would love to sit there and watch that, because I'm like, they're like, we want a play date, and they're like, parents are looking like, oh, okay. And I loved it. So yeah, that was really nice to see, like that science is a bridge that everybody can come together with.
And I think so, topic today, so guys, we've explored, from Matt's discussion about the business side of things to Pete, where we went into the data. So Latasha, we had a data sort of expose the other day. And today we delved into the leadership, right? And I think it's an important thing, as you all are building things, you can't do it alone. It's really hard to do it alone, and that's something that then, as you bring in new people, gain them buy into the mission, right? Those connections. Latasha talked about like the outside organizations, very important, but also the individuals that you bring on your team, and that map of people, Latasha, looks like is growing and growing.
I know, it's kind of crazy. Yes.
It's crazy. So, Gabriela, you had a question.
So thank you for a great talk, and I'm a big fan of the BIOBUS when I first heard about it. So I was really looking forward to your talk today. My question is about, you mentioned about building community. What do you think is like the most challenging thing about building community? Or the best strategy to build community?
Okay, so the thing is so the hardest part is it takes time. And you really need to, it takes time and it takes effort. And like, the thing is like you want to go in and hit the ground running and doing programs, but you can't. You have to build the trust. You have to let people know what's happening. You need to because like, you're like, oh, I can just start doing this, but that's not the way that you should go. You have to take the time to really understand the landscape of what you're doing. And also finding people who are going to be your key partners is also like important, and it takes time to work with that. And I got lucky in the Lori's in Harlem, and I started working with the woman who was interviewed, Bibiana, on the video. I like immediately found her, and she's like this fountain of information, and she's like, this school is good, this school's principal is the best, okay, you need to go to this. And then so she was able, I was like, let's go to dinner and you can download this stuff to me. And she's like, even now, I'm calling, I'm like, what about, are the kids, are they really getting, do they all have like, what's the digital divide like? Is it a thing, or should I be worried about that? Like, if I can call and ask her like those kind of on the ground questions, then she can help me. And those are things that are super, like you can't manufacture, and it also means that you have to invest that thing. And so like if she needs something from me, she'll call. And like when, like, to be honest, when COVID hit, they stopped allowing us to go into the biobase. And then they were like, I'm not sure when this is going to open up again. So I called Bibiana and I was like, hey, can I put a microscope cart in your facility and start a biobase in your facility until they let us back in? And she's like, yeah, no problem. So those things are important to build and have that relationship that you can go to in those times of like, oh crap.
Yeah, I think it's a
Thank you.
Good question from you all. Okay, any other last minute questions before I sum up?
Okay, you guys can get in touch with me if you have questions later. Then and I hope that I was able to like address the leadership issues.
I think so, and I think the video, guys, we're gonna have to I'm gonna rewatch it again because it's dense, right? It's really dense in there, and I think that's really great because there's so many things you can extract from leadership to, I mean, you connected all the dots, right? And I think this is the key point here is that everything kind of fits into this structure that you're building slowly, and you're gonna build allies in there to help you move your idea forward. And I think that's the my message for you guys as you build your organizations. It's about people.
Mm-hmm.
Big chunk of it is about people, getting the right people on board and motivating them, that let them inspire you to keep going, because there'll be hard times and good times, right, Latasha? So,
Exactly.
with that, thank you so much. I am super excited and so inspired. Thank you all. And next week, guys, will be our last session before demo day. I'm getting sad and sadder, but see you guys very soon. Okay.